Today, I want to introduce you to a very sacred and incredible building. It's the Hagia Sophia Grand Mosque. It is located in Istanbul, Turkey. It was built over 1,500 years ago. In its early days, it was the heart of Eastern Orthodox Christianity. But later on, it became a holy site of Islam. Yes, a church turned into a mosque. It is a very spectacular, magnificent cathedral. Look at this spacious main hall. A spacious main hall with an expansive dome above. The diameter of this hall is 31 meters. In architectural terms, it's extremely hard to build, because within this 31-meter span, there isn't a single column. Of course, a large building like this is no longer a big deal in today's world. But the Hagia Sophia was built over 1,500 years ago. At that time, there was no high-tensile steel, nor was there the modern concrete used in modern construction. Under such circumstances, just the span of this hall wasn't easy to achieve. When it was built, it was the largest cathedral in the world at that time. It quickly gained international fame and was considered one of the best of its time.
What is the structure of the Hagia Sophia building?
In the Hagia Sophia, arches like this make up most of the support of the building. The part that forms the arch is also called the vault. The vault is made of fragmented bricks, stones, and other materials. Everything is arch-like in shape throughout the entire building. All the upper parts of the doors and windows are arched, the doors, and even the windows too. What is the advantage of this? It increases the overall size and span of the doors and windows. Let's take Greek architecture for example. Between two large stone columns the space is narrow, usually over a meter wide. The columns usually act as a support for the stone ceiling. They can't be too long or else they'd crumble. What if the part above the main entrance is arch-shaped? In that case, the main entrance can be as wide as 2 or 3 meters. It feels more spacious that way, giving it a somewhat majestic vibe. Next, let me tell you about the most sacred part of this cathedral's architecture. Think of a huge pot lid. It's called a dome. That's a dome. Looks like a pot lid covering steamed buns, right? The dome is supported by curved beams as backbones, just like the paper fans we use. Do you know what the leaves of the cattail plant look like? It's like the shape of a handheld fan, right? With a little trimming and binding. It becomes a portable, handheld fan. A paper fan has a fold every 1 to 2 centimeters on its main body. Each fold usually comes with its own strip as its backbone. Later, when the Chinese made folding fans, they used bamboo strips as the backbone. Sturdy and flexible bamboo strips are inserted into the folds. They're like the rib bones of the paper fans. The human rib cage has 24 ribs. These ribs are firm enough to support our chest. Otherwise, without bones to support on the outside, our body would fall apart. The dome structure was inspired by nature. The backbone structures were made using cement and bricks, then shaped into strips. There are 40 strips in total. This ribcage-like structure is incredibly strong. The strips support each other, as well as the rest of the roof. Do you understand now? The thickness of the roof is not uniform. It's alternating thin and thick. And it allows the roof to be so big and heavy. It lasted for over 1,000 years. It was repaired twice, but it lasted for hundreds of years. This is not easy.
How strong is the resistance of round shapes?
In the past, the intelligent Romans likely had scientists who discovered that a spherical shape can withstand heavier burdens. If you hit a basketball with a stick from any direction, 360 degrees, the stick gets bounced off. Yes, from any direction. There's a simple experiment. Buy a few cartons of eggs and find someone not particularly heavy. A lady, for example. Get her to stand on the eggs. The eggs won't break. What's the logic behind this? Were the eggs bewitched? No, they were not. It's the round shape that makes this possible. The dome of Hagia Sophia is built based on this principle. Think of the dome as an egg, with the bottom part of the shell, say, 40%, removed, leaving it with the remaining 60%. That's how it's done.
Why does Hagia Sophia have so many windows?
The entire row under the dome is filled with windows. There are 40 windows in total, corresponding to 40 ribs. In terms of building materials, hardened clay bricks are relatively heavy. So, with 40 hollowed parts, the entire structural weight was reduced. The entire Hagia Sophia building has a total of 310 windows. What's the purpose of having so many windows? They serve several purposes. The first is to utilize natural light. These windows are also arch-shaped. They bring a natural source of light from the highest point into the interior. In the past, there was no electric lighting. People used torches and oil lamps. In the Grand Hall, without windows, I think it wouldn't be that bright. Besides lighting, ventilation is also important. At night, you need oil lamps for lighting. It's essential to expel smoke from oil lamps. This is very necessary. It's also for air circulation. If you have an old house that hasn't been lived in for years, with the doors and windows tightly shut, after about 10 years, the shiny surface of the walls will start to decay. It turns into loose soil and falls off. Even the chandelier on the ceiling might fall down by itself. Give it more years, it'll get worse. The deterioration is due to poor ventilation and air circulation. For large buildings, proper ventilation is a must.
How is the Great Dome of Hagia Sophia supported?
The weight of the Great Dome is primarily supported by 4 large columns. There are inner and outer ones. Each pillar supports the main structure, and there is another one on the outside. It looks like there's only one, but in fact there are 2. Each holds not only the Great Dome, but also their own weight. Right next to the main hall, there are auxiliary halls with domes, right? Also, the pillars on the side are supporting the pillar next to them. Now, why do the columns come in pairs? This is what I think. There are 4 large columns. Say, if one supports 10 tons, would they be able to hold the Great Dome? More support is needed, right? Now, if 2 columns are tied together, given the same size, a pair of columns would be able to support 20 tons of weight. But 1 plus 1 will be more than 2. That's my understanding. A pair of similar columns should be able to support more than 20 tons of weight. This highlights the wisdom of the ancient Romans. Now, let's take a look at the columns in the Grand Hall. Yes, the columns that support the Great Dome above them directly. These columns are red. The color comes from the material. known as porphyry from ancient Egypt. This material, which the columns are carved from, is actually a type of ancient volcanic rock. It is very powerful. After thousands of years, these columns remain very sturdy. With a slight polish, they emit a red glow. I believe they chose this material for durability and resistance to oxidation and all kinds of pressure. That's how it is. So I was wondering, why not choose granite? Is granite too fragile? I believe the Romans must have thought about this thoroughly. Hardness is not everything. You need a bit of flexibility too. Typically, stones lack flexibility. So what did porphyry symbolize at that time? The Romans chose porphyry because that's the color of the robes worn by the Roman emperors. The robes were somewhat purplish, and the columns red in a darker tone. This is somewhat similar. It symbolized the nobility of the Roman emperors. Interesting, right? Think about it. White purple robes. And why were the columns red? I believe it's the color of the fire and the sun. The Romans wanted for their powerful emperors. Perhaps they believed that their emperors should have relentless energy like the sun. Some columns are also made of green volcanic stone from Greece. On the surface, the columns seem to contain many fragmented green pebbles, bonded together like jade. It looks artificial. Actually, it's not. It's volcanic rock. Besides the columns, we should also analyze the materials used for the walls. In terms of structure, the way it's built is special. It involves laying a layer of bricks, then a layer of stones. This is a special construction with a special building material, the Roman concrete, invented by the Romans. It is said to contain several materials. This area has a lot of volcanoes near the Mediterranean Sea. The Roman cement was made by mixing lime with pozzolanic ash, a kind of volcanic material. Sand and mud were added. Everything was mixed with water. Everything was mixed into a slurry-like substance to bind stones and bricks together. It's unique, right? It's quite unique. Around the world, usually when people built walls, they used only one material, and that was stones, or sometimes bricks. They were not bound together. However, from a visionary architectural perspective, keeping pressure resistance and durability in mind, the great Hagia Sophia was built, making it so sacred, great, and ahead of its time. The culture and scientific knowledge were so advanced. For example, the arched structure of the building. That's a little bit of what I know about the great Hagia Sophia Grand Mosque.
What secrets are hidden in the walls of Hagia Sophia?
When I walked into the central area of the Hagia Sophia, I discovered many remarkable things around the dome. This is what the locals said. There are patterns on the walls around the dome. The origin of these patterns are not known to many. What are they? After the Hagia Sophia was built around 1,500 years ago, over a decade was spent on artistic decoration. Prestigious artists were hired to produce artworks that could last for thousands of years. These artworks were created using small mosaic pieces. I believe this might be one of the earliest mosaic creations in history, the work of early mosaic artists. What are the mosaics made of? Many people think this is a mystery. We've seen mosaic pieces in red, black, and blue. They found stones like this. Then they got craftsmen to find ways to cut it into small pieces. Some pieces are as small as beans, and some are bigger. These pieces were embedded into the Roman cement by hand. They didn't fall off or change color for 1,000 years. The original color won't change. Some look golden. Why is that? It's gold leaf. Gold leaf sheets won't change color, but smoke makes them look more aged. Apart from colored stones, some of the pieces were also cut out from glass or ceramics. Then, they were inlaid onto the walls and look like paintings. Their colors have been the same for at least 1,000 years. These are all masterpieces.
Why use mosaics instead of murals?
Why did they go through all that trouble to use mosaics? In the past, Europeans would hire famous painters to paint murals on walls. I believe that in the coastal regions, whether it's oil paintings or wall paintings, paintings will degrade, the colors will fade. Even fabric would decay quicker. Things don't last very long in these regions. If you paint on the walls, the murals won't last a few years before deteriorating. Maintenance is not easy, and in the end, it doesn't always hold up. But with embedded mosaics, as long as they don't fall off, their colors would remain vibrant for millennia. Look at this image of Virgin Mary, Jesus, and the two great kings. Imagine how much time it took to inlay those tiny pebbles. It's so vibrant and sacred. After defeating Emperor Constantine XI, the second great ruler of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed II, entered the city of Constantinople. When he stepped into the Hagia Sophia building, he was awestruck upon seeing its beauty. No wonder the Roman Empire was so glorious. The beauty and solemnity of the building stunned him. Like any normal person, he was moved, and he vowed to protect it. But first, he needed to convert the building into a mosque to worship their God. However, Islam has a rule: no human or animal faces or eyes in their churches. That's what they say. And so, Mehmed II, the king, had the mosaic artworks plastered and covered up. But he didn't destroy them. What a rare and noble ruler he was. Many warmongers vented their anger on objects. They burned cities, palaces, and famous buildings, smashing everything in sight. In recent decades, people have become more open-minded, and people's minds have gone beyond the religious and national boundaries. So, the plaster was cleared away, revealing the mosaic images that were once covered up. With these artworks reappearing, more people will know how great the Roman Empire was. In terms of cultural depth, economy, architecture, scientific research and inventions, etc., the Roman Empire was unrivaled back then. This is reflected in its architecture, which also involved other fields of science, such as physics and the science of construction materials. In today's terms, the Romans even explored optical science and earthquake-proof engineering. This demonstrates that back then, the Roman Empire was incredibly powerful in terms of economy, military, and production. I hope that in the future, our world will be blessed with peace and prosperity. I hope everyone in the world will maintain and cherish peace. May everyone love the earth as if it were their own home. I wish you health, joy, and happiness.
小小的红点里，人生就此欢喜。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了，我美丽了。在茫茫人海之中，让我与你相遇。小小的红点里，人生变得神奇。我智慧了，我宽容了，我慈悲了，我自在了。因为有了你，生命变得更坚定，不忧忧无虑。因为有了你，日子不再有哭泣，不再